Oh, the next call will be a split call. The Honourable Damien O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And before I start, I'd just like to say to the new member, Clayton Mitchell over there, do not apologise for getting passionate in this House, because no matter how hard you try, Phil Goff and myself will try to make you look like a moderate, Mr Speaker. This is the place where we should have passion, because the issues we bring here to this House are very important, none more so than the one of migration. Mr Speaker, Labor supported this bill to the Select Committee because in principle we absolutely support the protection of migrant workers in this country and their conditions. But, Mr Speaker, we have to know that the legislation is going to be effective. And I've not heard so much hypocrisy in this House for a long time, because yesterday in this House, the Minister of Immigration refused to stand up and protect Chinese migrant workers who have been brought into this country to take asbestos out of trains. And he said, I'll fall in behind contract law because they're employed by a company that is not a New Zealand company. Therefore, those migrant workers don't have to have New Zealand wages and conditions. An outrageous act of slavery endorsed by the Minister in this House yesterday, and then he has the gall to come in the House today and say, oh, we're passing legislation to protect migrant workers. Mr Speaker, that's why Labor can't support this, because it's absolute hypocrisy. Mr Speaker, we supported the establishment of the RSE scheme, bringing into this country people from the Pacific Islands to help us out, Mr Speaker. We supported the ongoing utilisation of worker permits for people in the tourism industry, Mr Speaker. The dairy industry now is hugely reliant on workers who come into this country, Mr Speaker, and the meat industry, we supported them. The core of this economy, supported by migrant workers, Mr Speaker, there's a couple of reasons for that. Firstly, we haven't done a very good job at establishing a high-wage economy. So New Zealanders have opted to go offshore rather than stay here, and the jobs that the migrant workers come into in general terms are low-paid work, Mr Speaker, low-paid work, and we are reliant upon that. But there's still the unfair and unjust situation that in some of these industries they can rely on migrant workers for up to 5 years, giving them no security, allowing sometimes their families to come in, which is good, so they have some form of normality, but giving them no security and then telling them after 5 years to pack their bags and go home. Mr Speaker, I think that's as unfair as anything we're trying to address in this piece of legislation. And the government's not doing anything about that. As a former Associate Minister, someone who, and I know there'll be many on all sides of the House, who take pride in trying to do a very fair job in this really difficult area. 4,000 to 4,500 individual cases seeking an exemption to the rules because they believe they should be here. And I think that's a fair system, and I think we do our very best for them. But we've got an economy dependent on migrant workers. This government is moving to try and protect them, and we applaud the principle of that. In fact, I acknowledge this government has brought in legislation to protect foreign workers on foreign-owned fishing boats working in New Zealand. But when the Minister yesterday could not stand up and support the upholding of rights for those Chinese workers, I can't believe anything the government says. I cannot believe that the passage of this legislation, Mr Speaker, is about genuine attempt to bring fairness into the workplace. Mr Speaker, there are some terrible rorts going on and have been in the RSE scheme and across the migrant workers. I can tell you that workers who raise issues in the workplace are then threatened with the view that we will go back to your home village and not employ anyone next year if you continue to raise these issues. Outrageous strong-arm tactics over migrant workers. They are vulnerable. They do need protection, but they need it through legislation that is genuine and is backed by a government that upholds the rights for all migrant workers, not just those they select to because they're in their chosen industries. Mr Speaker, when the Minister upholds the rights for those Chinese workers getting asbestos out of trains, I'll believe the government. But until then, this is an act of
Sorry.
hypocrisy.
Reno Turakatini Tanakwe.